Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode 3 of Life Seeds, where we're going to dive into something that is vine-like, but something that is close to my heart as well, because the world of wine. My background, of course, is Italian. My wine that my grandfather, my nonno, used to feed me was the worst ever. He always would put it with ginger ale because that's how bad the wine was. But of course, we have Amanda with me this morning. But I'm really excited to also invite Allison Findlay, which is a winemaker at Flat Rock in the Niagara region. Hey guys, how's everybody?
So good.
So good. So glad to be here, guys.
Allison, I'm so glad for you to join us to debunk Frankie's putting ginger ale or Sprite in wine. That's not the way to go, is it?
You know what? Whatever floats your boat, whatever you like. I'm not here to, judge. Personally, not my favorite, but yeah.
That's just how bad it was. It was just that bad.
Oh, gotta cut the taste. Allison, you are a winemaker. Can you just give us a little background of who you are and kind of like how you got to the position of being a winemaker? And we have so many questions for you about wine, because who doesn't love a good glass of wine?
Oh, the greatest thing. Morning, noon, night, weekend, Tuesdays, celebrations. It's like the perfect beverage. It just fits with everything. So yeah, I did not grow up wanting to be a winemaker. It's not like really a thing you think of when you're a Northern Ontario kid, growing up around no vines. But I was really into science and plant sciences. So I did a Bachelor of Science degree, and then I was down in Niagara visiting a friend on reading week one year, and was just fell in love with this idea of soil and sunshine and art and science. And this woman behind a tasting bar just sold me this like amazing idea of wine. And I just thought wine was like my mom drank with her friends. Like I was so not privy to this world. And so I looked at the Viticulture and Winery program at Niagara College, and I was graduating. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. And I listened to this program, and every single winery was like by a lake or in the mountains or in beautiful parts of the world. And it was so cool. And the courses were like soil analysis and vine biology. I'm like, oh, I've done this already. Like, this is so crazy. Plus like sensory analysis of wines and old world wine knowledge. I'm like, so wait, I can taste wine and stick to like the science part. It was just like a perfect fit for me. And yeah, and then I got into the program, did it, and just fell in love with it. And it really took me to some cool places. I got to travel a bit and, do some harvests around the world. And that's always the fun part when you can work and travel and live and kind of hone your craft a bit. So yeah.
When it comes to wine has a lot of romance, of course, and it sounds very romantic, but there's a lot of work. You've grown in the industry. So tell us about that journey as well.
Yeah, so when I started, obviously I was very, very green and just had never really known a lot about pumps and a lot about any mechanics of this stuff. And really a cellar is a production facility where we move liquid around, right? So a lot of stainless steel and a lot of hard work and heavy lifting. So I just think that it's a very glamorous job title. I think winemaker, people think of us as stomping grapes gingerly with our feet and sipping on the juice and all this romance behind it, which is part of it for sure. But there's a lot of dirty work that goes in behind the scenes, and most days are long and arduous and very not dry and not warm and not clean at all. So.
I love that your Instagram handle is Winemaker's Boots, and your first post is all about, ooh, I love these boots, baby. They are my number one favorite companion. And that just goes to show that, yeah, that's certainly a part of it. Now, as well, it's a bit cooler this time of year, and you're growing grapes, you're doing wine. So can you tell us a little bit about the cool climate wines and kind of like seasonally how we see that all change over the next bit?
Yeah, so basically cool climate versus warmer climate. You think of cool climate, you have Ontario, you have parts of New Zealand, you have, maybe more New World styles, and then warm climate with your Spain and those very dry, arid summers. And in Ontario, cool climate just means that we have a shorter growing season, basically. So we have to have grape varietals that can ripen in a shorter time frame. So you think of those big cabs, Napa cabs and stuff. We grow those in Ontario, but they're not always going to be that same style every year because we have to pick them kind of before the snow flies. So we kind of have a shorter growing season. That's why Pinot Noir, Chard, and Riesling do so well, because they do have a little bit of a shorter growing season. And the thing about cool climate for us is that it actually benefits us because our vines stay dormant for longer in the spring and aren't as affected by that crazy random spring frost we always get. We always say don't plant your garden until after May long weekend, because in Ontario we always get that weird snap frost. And that can really damage the vines, actually take out your whole crop for the next year. So we are kind of lucky. We had this kind of cute little shoulder season that tucked us in really neatly. So most growing seasons maybe start a little earlier and end a little bit later, but they kind of are more moderate. Whereas Ontario, our curve is quite steep. So we catch up and we hit peak ripening, and then we pick it quickly, and then it goes back into dormancy pretty quickly. So that's kind of the difference in our cooler climate growing season versus a warmer climate.
Of course, that's going to make better wine. But tell me, it's
Right?
a hardier,
Obviously.
it's tougher. It's like, but then it's soft and subtle. Tell me about the Niagara soil, because, when it comes to any plant, I always say the plant is about the foundation. Soil really does relate to flavor as well.
Absolutely. So in Niagara, we have a very, very diverse soil structure. It depends where exactly you are in relation to the lake and the escarpment. So realistically, if you're standing on the north side of the escarpment, you're seeing all these different layers. You see it when you go on hikes in Niagara and the escarpment, all the different layers of soil. So basically when the lakes were ceded back to Lake Ontario, all this till started grading down the escarpment, and you're really getting different deposits as you walk towards the lake from where we are up on the 20-mile bench. And then you have the flatlands by the river delta as well in Niagara and the lake. And so really it's just a diverse area for soil. A lot of clay in some spots, a lot of sand in some spots. Where we are specifically, we have a ton of limestone, dolomitic limestone up on the top of the escarpment. So really, really difficult soils to penetrate, but really, really give to the wines and give to the grapes as well.
That would make the soil alkaline. So is that what you want? What type of soil? Do you want an alkaline soil for grapes?
That's a great question. With the limestone, you are having the alkaline, the magnesium and all that kind of stuff in the soil. And what I really think it does is gives minerality to the wine. So you don't want to have, super acidic either, but the grapes are used to like not harsh soils, but they're like you said, they're fighters. They like to struggle a bit, and the struggle actually helps the vine, put more concentration into the fruit. So if you have a struggling plant, as you know a lot about plants, obviously, it's not going to focus on getting, being tall or being a lot of green growth. It's going to focus on putting a lot of concentration into that berry, because that's what's going to give, be attracted to birds and other animals to go then spread that seed around, right? So struggling vines are going to give you more concentrated, kind of better winemaking starting points.
If someone wanted to make their own wine at home, are you cringing, or are you like, okay, this is where you've got to start? What are your tips for that?
Not cringing at all.
Okay, good.
Winemaking is literally taking fruit and having it kind of naturally fermenting. It's a total natural process using literally sugar and yeast and converting it into alcohol and a little bit of carbon dioxide. So I think the biggest thing with home winemaking is that, experiment, but just, you got to be on it. The thing about the commercial winemaking is that we're taking these, and it's all just, it's been done for so many years. So we have this process, right? So we're doing it at home. It's not cringeworthy. It's the same exact process. You just got to make sure things are clean. You got to stay on top of your VA, because grapes naturally don't want to be wine. They want to be vinegar. So if we were to leave everything up to its own devices, like just totally be natural, we're going to get a lot of vinegar out of the hard work that we've done all year to grow these grapes, and then just end up with not that great of a product. So
then you're adding
for
ginger
home
ale.
winemakers, the big thing, just make sure. And then you're adding ginger ale, and that's you're back to square one.
Or you're using it to pickle things. And you talked about
things, on your salads.
Exactly. There you go. I love a good wine vinegar, by the way, as well. It's kind of probably one of my favorite things that are out there. You talked a little bit about the struggling plant, and of course, things grow out of struggle. Women in winemaking, for centuries, it was always really a male-focused industry overall. But the Niagara region, it seems like women are really getting their roots, and you're one of the trailblazers there. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I definitely, have people ahead of me that really the trailblazers, but I find myself to be in a position of maybe the up and comers, the next generation. And I really noticed that in a lot of the assistant winemakers around the area, when I was starting to get to know these people on wine and became friends and colleagues, they're all the same age as me. They're all assistants at the time, and it was really obvious in the next 5 to 10 years, the shift that's going to be happening in Niagara. And I just think that's really just a reflection on time and things changing. We're a young industry, people were winemakers because they were farmers. They were farmers because their dad gave them the land and it passed on to the sons. And that's just kind of how centuries and centuries. And it's also, we talked about, a very, very physical job. It's really not glamorous. It's really time consuming. I know that especially with the pandemic, it's really shed light on how women are more likely to quit their jobs and go back to being at home when they need to be at home. And I just think that's a big part of it. And it's really hard to get a strong foothold. But I think too, with times changing, with our industry changing a bit, and all this focus on, work-life balance, I think it's going to be a really better place for women in our industry for sure.
Speaking to work-life balance, can you take us through your day? Like, when does it start? When does it end? What does your typical day look like when you are getting those boots dirty?
It's a great question. So I always say the wine industry and the wine year is very cyclical. So I just do the same thing every single year for the rest of my life, basically. but no day is ever the same.
Oh.
So if you think about winemaking from my point of view, is I think of it starting off when you pick the grapes. So that's going to be your September. And those days are 6 a.m. starts and they are finished whenever the last piece of equipment is cleaned that day. And every single day we get everything dirty, and it's processing tons and tons of beautiful estate grown Pinot Noir. And then you clean it all up and you leave, and they do exactly the same thing. It's kind of Groundhog Day for a few weeks to get those grapes in. Same thing when the whites come in. So the harvest is just insane. It's 7 days a week, 12 plus hours a day for up to 3 months. Usually we don't do ice wine on our property, so we don't have that dragged out process. I know a lot of people in Niagara had like a 6-month harvest. It's amazing. It's the longest in the world, actually. And then come, December, January, we're stopping ferments. Everything's in barrel. Things are quieter. Things are calmer. I'm working, 9 to 5. And then it gets into the bottling season. And the bottling season is basically when we're prepping those wines we just picked and fermented. And we're getting them filtered and we're getting them ready to go into bottle. And that is a lot of physical work. There's a lot of moving of liquid. That's a lot. Those are big days. Our winery is a gravity flow winery. So the grapes have an easy time going from top to bottom. That means I go up a lot of stairs and ladders in my day. So it's a little bit, it keeps me in great shape. That's like the biggest thing, is I don't have to go to the gym. And then, bottling is like a 5:30 start. Usually in the morning, it's a pretty big day. But once those wines are in bottle, they're off. They've flown the coop and they're ready for you guys to enjoy. And the summer season is a lot of vineyard time. So I am basically in the vineyard every single day, just watching the grapes. Like I said, we have a very steep curve. So they start and then it's just go time until they are into ripening and veraison in August. And you're just watching them all year. We have a very humid climate in Ontario. So we are watching for humidity, we're watching for, disease pressure, making sure that we're shoot thinning, we're making sure the grapes have enough sunlight, we leaf pull to make sure that everything is has the best chance for ripening and survival and to be a clean product. You can't make good wine from bad fruit, but you can make bad wine from good fruit.
Yeah,
that's
totally
good.
true.
That's a tweetable moment.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I also know in the Niagara region, I hear the guns going off all the time to keep the birds off. There's always about
the bird bangers. Yeah, if you ever
Yeah.
wonder why a bottle of Ontario wine costs a certain amount, the amount of effort the growers put in, and like we're just fighting against everything from too much water in the spring and trying to get in there with tractors to humidity in the summer, vines shutting down because it's 37 degrees outside, and then the birds come, and then the birds can clear a crop in an afternoon, and it's just like it's a constant battle, and it's 100% passion driven for sure.
that speaks to agriculture really across the country. Farmers out there are battling each and every day, and a lot of the times they're really not acknowledged for the amount of struggle and challenge, but that's kind of the fun that's as well. My family are greenhouse growers. We used to be farmers, and then we thought we'll put it underneath the cover so that'd be a little bit easier to control.
Have a chance.
We do something called plant trials. So we go out and we look at new varieties of plants, and we look at different things in terms of genetics and how that happens. There's wine trials as well that you do.
Wine trials, like in the building, you mean?
Yeah,
absolutely. So ultimately the goal is to make the best product. And we, as winemakers, we don't have a lot of tools at our disposal. It's grapes and it's oak. Those are my two big things I get to play with. So throughout my time at Flat Rock, I started off basically as a cellar hand. I've moved up as I've been there, and just learned a lot. And being at the same place for 6 years really shows you, gives you a good broad view of how things can change, how years can affect things. And so some years, are hotter, so you have lower acid grapes coming in, and you can kind of taste through that and see, what you want to do for picking and stuff. You want to pick at the right time. So you're tasting, you're picking on certain dates to kind of make sure that acid's balanced. And then same goes for blending trials. So we have 300 barrels, let's say. Some are new oak, some are older oak. They're all Pinot Noir. We're going to taste through all those and do different trials of oak treatments that we like, because we want to ultimately give the customer the best wine that we can. And that's kind of where my job's important. I've done years of studying. I've done, years of trials. I've done all this stuff. And, I am now going to make this decision and put it into bottle and hope everyone likes it.
That is so cool. I love what you said about how different years can yield different results. And here at Life Seeds, when we talk about, throughout the podcast, it's often about life and growing. And I feel like that's just such an important message that we can take away from the garden, this time being a vineyard, that life just, it's not always going to be the exact same. You're not always going to get the exact same bottles of wine. In your experience being at Flat Rock, what has that journey been like? Ups and downs? What was like the best year? What were some of the toughest times?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know that my boss, Ed, we talk a lot about, climate change and this stuff, and that's going to exacerbate the changes in seasons and growing seasons. And he was saying to me, all that says to me is I just have to have the best winemaker possible, because you need to be able to roll with those punches. And so there's years that are challenging when we don't have the heat units at the summer. If there's too much rain and we can't get in there to spray or to leaf pull properly, we're going to have struggling fruit. And so we have a sorting table at Flat Rock. So when the grapes do come in, if there is grapes that, are underripe or have, been affected by disease, they get sorted out of the final product. But ultimately, then you're reducing your yield. So then that's stressful, because then your cost of goods goes up. But then you have your stellar years like 2020. And I can't praise, I hate 2020. Everyone hates 2020. Yeah. I get it. But the silver line of 2020 was that it was the greatest growing season I've ever seen in my career. That I've been doing this for 10 years now. And I was just astonished. We had our hands off the sorting table. We just watched perfect clusters float by us into the tanks, and thinking like, how is this like the silver lining of this year? It's so crazy. So there's years like that. But then the pressure then is that it's up to me now to babysit that and not mess it up, right? So you start here, and I can't make it better, right? I have to just make sure it stays at this high level. Because again, you can't add anything to these wines to change them. It's grapes and it's oak and it's time. So I think that's the big struggle, is that you're rolling with the punches, and we really are not in control. It's all Mother Nature. I can't help it if it rains, if it's hail, if it's drought. It's just a matter of, like you said, like it's life. It's dealing with what you're dealt.
Yeah, that's good.
Here's a question for you too. Is this the perfect job for you? Do you think, when you think about your personality, do you feel the connection? Do you feel the passion? Have you learned things through this about yourself? Have you, each and every day when you're out there, it's all about challenge, and there's a lot of things you can't control. It's about being, it sounds like it's about being open, but also being knowledgeable. Is this the perfect job for you? Do you think this is, you found it?
It's a great question. I I honestly do. I think that my passion comes through. I think it's a bit much sometimes for my colleagues, and I'm like, spun and running around the winery. And Ed always says, like, she's always like Tasmanian devil running around, excited about new ideas, new projects. I'll say what I learned about myself that I did not know when I started was when I started in the wine program, I wore cute little skirts and little flat shoes to school every day, and I did my hair all fancy, and I of myself that was very important to me outwardly. And now I realize I love wearing steel toe boots. I love ponytails, and I just love that I get to make something. So I didn't know that I was a tactile person, and that I loved, driving forklifts, and I loved seeing an end product and like really feeling and being in touch with what I'm doing. And that's the biggest thing I learned, is that I'm very strong. I'm very like into hard work, and I always thought I'd sit behind a desk, and there's nothing wrong with either one. I just didn't know that about myself at all. I really had a clear vision of myself at 18, as we all probably do. And it's completely different now. So that's one thing I would learn.
I always think it's so insane that we tell 18-year-olds to choose their career path for the end. Like, I remember I was in wealth management, and then I just switched around, and I was reading a little bit of your backstory, Allison, and we are so similar in that I also have a science degree, and then I decided, oh my gosh, I want to go into broadcasting, but it like still all came full circle. And I find that there's so many moments in life, so many people, so many experiences. Education is something, even if it's not in the field, you still learn something from it. And whether that's just learning to learn, I don't know. I always thought that was cool. So I'm going to a dinner party. I'm not actually, because COVID, but I'll put you in a scenario. It'll just be me, Scott, and yeah. Could you imagine? Oh my God. Okay. So I'm going to put you in a scenario. I'm going to my first dinner party back. We're all vaccinated, baby. It's good. I have to, 1, bring a bottle of wine with me, and 2, sound knowledgeable about it. What is the bottle of wine I should bring, and what should I say about it?
So you've just been vaccinated, you just see your friends. It is time to celebrate. I am going to say you bring a bottle of Ontario Sparkling, because, and what you say about it is the most undervalued product on the market. Ontario Sparkling wine is absolutely fantastic. We have the perfect growing region for it, because you're picking sparkling early to retain that nice bright acidity, right? And we grow Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, like tons of it. And those are the perfect grapes that they grow in Champagne for sparkling wine. And the knowledge we have in Ontario, these winemakers are growing this amazing, amazing sparkling, and they're selling it for $30 a bottle, maybe $40 a bottle. And it is made with the just traditional method, just like champagne is, except you can't call it that because it's protected.
Region.
but you get to be this new hip person who knows the next up and coming thing. Like, that's what you're saying about it. You're like, oh, you guys haven't heard about Ontario Sparkling? Oh, this is like the hottest product. It is perfectly made. It's traditional method. It's aged on the lees. It's secondary fermented bottle. It's done exactly the same way, except it's a third of the price, and you can drink 3 bottles of it. That means, so what you're really getting is value, and it is for celebrating. It is just bubbles. It's fresh. There's so many different styles that people are making now. It's amazing. So that's definitely what I would recommend.
Awesome.
When it comes to wine in Ontario as well, the benefit Ontario has is there's no rules, because we're not in a region that has a history, or we have to do things a certain way. That freedom probably makes the Ontario wine industry probably one that's going to be the innovator. It's the innovator of the entire world.
Absolutely. I think there's so much going on in the Ontario wine region. There's a lot of discussion about us focusing, like how New Zealand is like, New Zealand, Sauvignon Blanc, Burgundy, Pinot Noir. You just know there's certain grapes in certain places. Canada doesn't really have that yet, or Ontario, I should say, doesn't really have that yet. But the other thing too is the flip side is so many different things, so many great things. And like you said, we can kind of, be innovators, try new things, do the orange wines, do the natural wines, do the hybrids. Like, if we can't grow certain varietals in Ontario because of our climate, innovate, try something new, do a hybrid, do blends, all this stuff. Geotextiles are a huge thing right now that people are using in their vineyards to blanket them, to actually ripen Sauvignon Blanc and ripen all these and have these last through the winter. And it's such a great idea. Like, if climate change is a real thing, and if we are going to continue to have a viable business and viable vineyards, we need to, roll with the punches and change with the times.
So I have to give a shout out to Jacob for connecting us. He works at Flat Rock Cellars, and I'm so thankful. I just want to know, why Flat Rock? Like, why going to Niagara? There are so many vineyards. Why should we come visit you guys? I already know because I've had a couple of bottles of wine from there, so I can put my stamp of approval for sure on. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree. There's so many amazing wineries. Come to Flat Rock because I know what we do there, and I know that it's all, starts in the vineyard. It's all of every little step we take to give you that perfect experience, that perfect bottle. I do everything I can to make sure that the wine is fantastic, but I just know that the customer service side is like second to none. You walk into the winery, you stare out of our tasting room, and it's vineyards, lake, and the city of Toronto. You can see right across the lake. You're up in the escarpment. It's so stunning. We have amazing staff who are just like the biggest wine nerds you've ever seen, and they are ready to geek out with you and teach you everything about Flat Rock and the soil and the history and wine and tasting. And it's really, really just a fun place to work and be. And, it's just beautiful to sit up on our green roof patio, enjoy a glass of BQA well-made wine from the grapes that you're staring at as you're enjoying it. So yeah. I'm just obsessed with it because it's my home. It's like where I've kind of grown up,
Oh, I love it.
I love it.
Yeah.
So on a selfish level, I know we can hang out because I know you love Pinot Noir. I am Pinot Noir. That's my go-to. It's kind of funny. I've kind of gone through Barolos, Amarones, it could be an Italian, Chianti, but here I am. And I'm ending off with Pinot Noir. And I've been really a big fan of Pinot Noir for the last several years because it's easy to drink and it just seems like it's just easier on my body as well. So a Pinot Noir, what should be a bottle of Pinot Noir that I should order today?
Well, just any single bottle or from Flat Rock Cellars. Because I think that if you're ordering a bottle today, definitely we've been doing really fun and cool things with our gravity portfolio and our Pinot Noir. So, it's always a barrel selection. It's always the same. It's estate fruit. It's always hand picked, hand sorted, single batch ferments, and then aged in French oak. And then we select each barrel, and the gravities have just been getting better and better. And I think that's a big thing is the vineyard age. I think that, 15 was an amazing year, and I think that the 18 and the 19 are just like getting spectacular. They're changing, they're evolving, they're getting more textural, they're getting a little bit bigger. They're not big. Pinot Noir is a medium body wine, as you know, but our gravity, any year you're going to find an amazing wine. So definitely.
I'm going there.
Tell us a bit
I'm
about
doing
that.
it.
Yeah, he's like online already ordering. He's like,
Yeah.
Can you tell us just about that gravity process? Just because I've seen in your pictures those huge, barrels that you have to do. Even asking this question, it's hard to ask because I don't know enough to ask it. But I think you know where I'm going up and down those stairs. What is the gravity doing?
Yeah, so it goes back to the building. So the building is built up instead of out. So we have 5 levels of winemaking that could have been spread out over more of a footprint. But when the family looked at the escarpment, they wanted to have as little impact on the environment around them as possible. So they, instead of going out and taking up more land, they went up and down. So the other thing about that is that the grapes come in up top, and from there they don't get pumped the reds anyway. So grapes come in, they fall into a fermenter. From the fermenter, they ferment on the skins, get the tannins, get the color, get all that fun stuff happening. They then fall into the press on level 3. From there, they get barreled to level 5 down below, all done by gravity. And what happens with the gravity is just, it's a gentler process. Pinot Noir, we talked about, it's a medium bodied red wine. It's not, a big tannic, tough skinned, bruiser. It is a softer, more delicate grape. It's a softer, more delicate wine in some cases. And what you're doing with the gravity is just kind of having a less beating out, less oxygen introduced kind of process. And it's a stylistic decision that they made 20 some years ago. It also just pays homage to how wine was made centuries ago, because there was no pumps, there was no stainless steel, there was just a hill you built your winery into and had the grapes on at the top of the hill and the barrels at the bottom of the hill, and that was kind of just how it worked.
Cool.
But you know what? Thanks for joining us today. You know, it's when it comes to passion, like I'll tell you, when it comes to people, you can tell that you're passionate. It makes me want to try different wines. It actually makes me want to experiment as well. It makes me want to come down there and see. I always feel like there's an energy in the Niagara region. It's kind of funny. When I drive to certain areas, I always feel like there's an energy, and I kind of feel the energy of passion and love, not only just with the vineyards that are there. There's a lot of greenhouse growers there that are friends of mine as well. So it's an area that I absolutely love.
Same. I'm not, like I said, I'm from Northern Ontario. I did not grow up around peaches or grapes or a lot of blueberries. But I just love Niagara too, because we're just so surrounded by unbelievable bounty and farmers and vineyards and all this really cool stuff. And now, you know, the Great Lakes. And I'm really just always curious about Niagara. I know that Northern Ontario is my home, my heart's there, my family's there, but my brain is in Niagara. Like, I want to see what happens here. I'm just so curious about it all the time. So yeah, I love it too.
I love that you said that too, Frankie, because I've been on a wine tour before. I don't know about you guys listening as well, but it's just always so cool learning and talking about food pairings and all of these things, because that's just the good stuff in life, 100%. Okay, where can we find you? Let's do some plugs. If people come to the winery and they want to learn more, can they say, where's Allison at? Tell us about it.
Absolutely. So the hardest part about COVID is that one of the funnest parts of my job is gone, because I don't do events, I don't do customer interaction. It's kind of just like that whole social aspect is taken away from me. And it's kind of like I'm alone in the cellar. It's just humdrum. But yeah, if you want to connect with me online, obviously at Winemaker's Boots, I am happy to chat with you on Instagram, and at the winery. Again, if we are open and eventually can do tastings again, please reach out to our hospitality manager, and she will set you up with either a tour and a tasting or a private tour and tasting with myself. And yeah, we're happy to have people as soon as we can safely, obviously. But yeah, I'm here to be reached out to whenever.
I believe we're going to be running a giveaway with you guys too. So be sure to check out Life Seeds Podcast on Instagram to see how you can be involved with that. Flowers, wine, it sounds good to me. Frankie, how about you take us out?
Yeah, so that's episode 3 of Life Seeds with Allison. And Allison, a fantastic time to be here. You know what? We got grapey, we got viney. We learned a little bit about life overall. And now that we have the real squish, I'm going to go into a dish and get online and order my wine.
Wow. Okay.
What a way to end it. Thanks, guys. Have an awesome
Thanks,
day.
Allison.
Bye,
Yeah, you too,
Allison.
Joe.
Thank you.
Bye.
Oh my God, that was hilarious. Were you writing that?
No.
Wow. You are truly a gem in the biz. Frankie, what did you think about Allison?
She's awesome. You know what? When you think about adversity, you know, when you think about Northern Ontario, it's a big thing from somebody from Northern Ontario. I have lots of friends in Sault Ste. Marie. She's from Dryden, Ontario. You know, to think about coming down and to put roots in a new community in an industry that's male dominated, amazed about what she's doing today. And I'm looking forward to what she'll do tomorrow. And the Niagara region is like a gem. We always say that we always look at Niagara Falls as one of the wonders of the world. The Niagara region, in terms of agriculture, is a wonder of the world.
100%. You know, I really wanted her to tell us about her women in wine tasting and her own, but you know what? It's so hard for people to toot their own horn. Allison has been pivotal in bringing women into the Niagara region. She's created this brainchild that's been super important to her, having more women experience wine in that way. And I just thought it was so cool. Speaking to seasons in your life and the way that different years yield different fruit, Frankie, what have you taken away from life about that?
It's different years. You know, when you talk about different wines, how different years have different tastes. So if we look at our lives, that we generally have different years of our lives that maybe were a little bit sweeter than others. And then there's some that maybe left us a little sour. but it's the collection of those years that make us better. And we grow. We all grow through those. And as a winemaker, you're learning through those collection of years, the adversities, the too much rainfall. We get sometimes in our lives too much rain, and then sometimes we have a year that's just perfectly sunny. And it's amazing that in 2020, a year that we saw so much adversity, that the wine, it could be the best wine ever, that the yield was so amazing. And that's generally it. It's about what is being given to us versus what's being taken away. And maybe what was given to the wine is less people on the roads and less travel and less environmental pollutants that are out there. And all of a sudden you got perfect wine. So there's always a silver lining, just the lesson to be learned.
I mean, I don't want to promote overconsumption, but I think we all needed a glass of wine in 2020. And someone out there was like, you know what? Let's give them the best grapes.
I drank a lot of wine in 2020. A lot.
Yeah, when she was talking about those different seasons, I was like, I now, in my 30s, we did it, we made it. I can look back on years in my 20s and be like, that was a tough year, but I'm glad I had it because I'm so much better for it. And I think that's so hard sometimes, thinking when you're just going through the sludge. It's like being on a bike and you're just going uphill, but you're going to get to that vantage point where everything makes sense. I don't know. Yeah. I loved that interview.
And with you, I remember, when you went through a bad breakup and how you were destroyed and how your confidence was destroyed at that point. And then you met this fantastic guy named Scotty who popped into your life and just in the last few weeks popped out a ring and said, hey, marry me. And congratulations on that as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we haven't said that on the podcast. I am now officially an engaged woman. So I'm sure that we should get a wedding planner on here, something to do with like florals and weddings. And that would be a really fun podcast.
Yeah, it would be. And congratulations to you. That was an amazing podcast, by the way.
Thank you. All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening again. You can follow us at Life Seeds Podcast, Frankie at Frank Faragine on Instagram, me at Below the Blonde. We always love chatting with you. And if you are listening and you think, hey, I know someone who would be a perfect guest for this podcast, that's exactly how we got Allison. Jacob, my friend, reached out. He's from Flat Rock Cellars. Shout out to you guys as well. Go check out their wine, their website. They are Flat Rock Cellars on Instagram. And he said, I really think that you would have a great conversation with Allison, being a woman in the biz. So we would love to hear from you.
Keep growing, everybody. Life Seeds, episode 3, over and out.